Daily life in ancient Egypt. How people really lived in the ancient world. Have you ever wondered what life was really like in ancient Egypt, beyond pyramids and pharaohs? In this series, we take you on a journey into the daily routines, homes, food, clothes, and customs of ordinary people who lived along the Nile River thousands of years ago. Through simple and clear English, you'll explore how ancient Egyptians worked, celebrated, learned, and built a society that still amazes the world today. Let's travel back in time and see what everyday life in ancient Egypt was truly like, not just for kings, but for farmers, builders, children, and families too. This series is perfect for English learners who want to improve their skills while discovering fascinating history. Episode 1. Life in Ancient Egyptian Villages. In ancient Egypt, most people lived in small villages along the Nile River. These villages were made up of mud brick houses. The houses were simple, usually only 1 or 2 rooms. The roofs were flat, and people often slept on the roof during hot nights. The walls kept the houses cool in the day and warm at night. Inside, there was not much furniture, maybe a low bed, a few baskets, and clay pots. Most homes had a small area for cooking, usually outside. Life was simple, but everyone had jobs and responsibilities. Families were very important in ancient Egypt. Men worked in the fields or did jobs like building, fishing, or trading. Women often stayed at home and cared for children. But women also helped with farming, made clothes, baked bread, and took care of the home. Children started helping their families from a young age. Girls learned housework, and boys helped in the fields or learned a trade. Many people could not read or write, but some boys went to special schools to learn. These boys could become scribes, very important jobs in ancient Egyptian society. Food in ancient Egypt came mostly from the Nile River. Farmers grew crops like wheat and barley. They also grew vegetables such as onions, garlic, lettuce, and cucumbers. Fruit like dates, figs, and melons were popular. Most people ate bread and drank beer every day. Bread was made from emmer wheat, and beer was made from barley. The beer was thick and had many nutrients. Meat was not common for poor families, but sometimes they ate fish or poultry. Richer families could eat beef, lamb, or special meals during festivals. Clothing was simple and comfortable. Most people wore clothes made from linen, a light fabric made from flax plants. Men wore short skirts, and women wore long dresses with straps. Children usually did not wear clothes until they were older. Both men and women wore jewelry like bracelets and necklaces. Even poor people tried to wear some simple jewelry. Rich people had gold, silver, and colorful stones. People also wore makeup, especially eyeliner. They believed it protected their eyes from the sun and from sickness. Every day began early. The sun was important, and many people started working when the sun came up. Farmers worked in their fields using simple tools. Life was connected to the seasons and the Nile River. When the river flooded, it brought new soil to the land. This helped crops grow better. The flood time was a break for many farmers. During this time, they helped build temples or worked on public projects. Religion was a big part of daily life. People believed in many gods and goddesses. They prayed at home or small temples. They believed gods controlled everything: the sun, the river, crops, and health. People gave offerings like food or small statues to make the gods happy. Priests were important and helped with ceremonies. Some homes had small altars for private prayers. People wanted to live a good life so they could be happy after death. Entertainment was simple but fun. People played music using drums, flutes, and harps. Dancing was common during festivals. Children played games with balls or carved toys. Board games like Sinet were popular among both children and adults. Sometimes there were storytellers who told tales of gods, kings, or heroes. Festivals were times of joy, music, food, and family. These moments gave people a break from work and brought the community together. Ancient Egyptian village life was not easy, but it was full of tradition, strong family ties, and respect for nature and gods. People worked hard, but they also celebrated life. Through their daily routines, we can see how they built one of the most famous civilizations in the world. Episode 2: Work and Jobs in Ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, most people had to work hard every day. Life was not easy, but it was very organized. Jobs were divided based on age, gender, and social class. Rich people and poor people did very different types of work. The pharaoh and the royal family did not work like others. They were seen as gods on earth and gave orders. But most Egyptians were workers, farmers, or craftsmen. Work was important, and everyone had a role in building the great Egyptian civilization. The largest group of workers were the farmers. They worked near the Nile River because the soil there was rich and good for growing food. Every year, the river flooded and brought new soil. This helped the farmers grow crops like wheat, barley, vegetables, and fruits. Farming was hard. People used simple tools, and they worked under the hot sun. Men did most of the field work, while women helped at home with food and cloth making. Children also helped with small jobs. Another important group was the builders and laborers. They built great monuments, temples, and pyramids. Contrary to what many people think, the pyramids were not built by slaves. Many of the workers were paid. They got food, clothes, and shelter. They worked in teams, using large stones and wooden tools. It was dangerous and heavy work. Still, it was an honor to work for the pharaoh and the gods. Some workers even carved their names into the stones. Craftsmen were highly skilled people. They made jewelry, furniture, pottery, and weapons. Some were painters or sculptors. These workers learned their skills from their fathers or masters. Their work was used in temples, tombs, and homes. They used tools made of copper or bronze. Their creations were beautiful and detailed. Wealthy Egyptians loved to buy these handmade items. Scribes had one of the most respected jobs. They knew how to read and write in hieroglyphics. Most people in Egypt could not read or write, so scribes were very important. They worked for the government, temples, or rich families. Scribes recorded food amounts, taxes, laws, and stories. They went to special schools to learn to write. It was a hard job that needed many years of training. Women in ancient Egypt also had jobs, but their work was often in the home. Some women helped on farms or worked as weavers, making cloth from flax. Wealthy women could become priestesses or own businesses. Women had more rights in Egypt than in many other ancient cultures. They could own land, go to court, and run shops. Children did not usually go to school unless they were from rich families. Instead, they learned from watching their parents. Boys often learned the same job as their fathers. Girls learned to cook, sew, and take care of the house. There were also apprentices. These were young boys who worked with craftsmen to learn a skill. After many years, they became skilled workers. Priests had a very special job. They worked in temples and talked to the gods. They cleaned statues, sang songs, and did religious ceremonies. Temples were big and busy places. Priests had to follow many rules. For example, they had to shave their heads and wash many times a day. Even though life was hard, most Egyptians were proud of their work. They believed it was important to help their community and please the gods. Work was also a way to show respect to the pharaoh. People thought that doing their job well could help them in the afterlife. They believed that the gods watched everything. In conclusion, ancient Egyptian jobs were very important to daily life. Farmers fed the country. Builders created amazing monuments. Craftsmen made beautiful things. Scribes recorded history. Priests connected with the gods. Every job mattered, and each person helped to build one of the world's greatest civilizations. Episode 3: Family and Social Life in Ancient Egypt. Family life in ancient Egypt was very important. Most people lived in small houses with their families. A family usually included the mother, father, and children. Sometimes grandparents also lived in the same home. Family members cared for each other and shared responsibilities. Life was simple, but there was love, respect, and strong family ties. Egyptian houses were made from mud bricks. They had flat roofs and small windows. The homes were cool during the hot days. Some families slept on the roof during warm nights. Inside the home, there were only a few rooms. People sat on mats or low stools. Wealthier families had larger houses with more rooms and furniture. The kitchen was often outside, and cooking was done over a fire. The father was usually the head of the family. He worked outside the home, on farms, in workshops, or for the government. The mother managed the home. She cooked, cleaned, made clothes, and took care of the children. Mothers taught their daughters how to manage a home, and fathers taught their sons their work or trade. Families were close, and parents wanted their children to grow up strong and respectful. Marriage was important in ancient Egypt. Most people married young, usually in their teens. Weddings were not big parties. There were no official ceremonies. When a man and woman decided to live together and start a family, they were considered married. The husband promised to provide food and a safe home. The wife promised to care for the house and children. Love and respect were the main values in marriage. Children were loved and welcomed. Boys and girls played with toys like balls, dolls, and small animal figures. They also played games with stones and sticks. Rich children had toys made from wood or clay. Many children helped with housework or their parents' jobs from a young age. Education was mostly for boys from rich families. They went to school to learn to read, write, and do math. Girls stayed home and learned household tasks. Religion was a big part of social life. Families prayed at small altars in their homes. They believed in many gods and goddesses. People made offerings of food, flowers, or incense. Temples were important places for festivals and ceremonies. During special events, families wore their best clothes, ate special food, and joined the celebrations with music and dance. Everyone enjoyed these times together. Friendship and hospitality were also important. Neighbors helped each other and shared food. People visited friends, told stories, and enjoyed music. Musicians played harps, flutes, and drums. Dancers entertained guests during meals or parties. Social life was active, especially during harvest time or religious festivals. Even poor families found time to relax and enjoy life. Clothing in ancient Egypt was simple. Most people wore light clothes made of linen because of the hot weather. Men wore short skirts called kilts. Women wore long, straight dresses. Children often didn't wear clothes until they were older. Both men and women wore jewelry made from stones, beads, or gold. Wealthy Egyptians wore more colorful clothes and decorated themselves with makeup, wigs, and perfumes. Food was another big part of daily life. Egyptians ate bread, vegetables, and fruits. Common vegetables were onions, leeks, and cucumbers. Figs and dates were popular fruits. Most people did not eat meat often because it was expensive. They drank beer or water with meals. Rich families had better food and more variety, including meat, fish, and sweet cakes. In conclusion, family and social life in ancient Egypt were full of warmth, traditions, and shared moments. People lived simply, but found joy in their families, friendships, celebrations, and daily routines. Their way of life helped create a strong and lasting culture that still amazes the world today. Episode 4: Work, Economy, and Free Time in Ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, people worked hard every day. Most jobs were related to the land, the river, or the temples. Work was an important part of daily life, and each person had a role in society. From farmers to builders, from traders to artists, every job helped make ancient Egypt strong and successful. Many Egyptians were farmers. They worked near the Nile River. The Nile flooded every year and made the land rich. Farmers planted crops like wheat, barley, and vegetables. They also grew flax to make linen for clothes. After harvesting, they gave some of the food to the government and kept the rest for their families. Farming was not easy. People worked long hours in the sun using simple tools. Some people were craftsmen. They made things like pottery, jewelry, clothes, tools, and furniture. Others were builders. They helped build houses, temples, and pyramids. These workers were not slaves. They were paid with food, clothes, and sometimes money. They lived in special workers' villages and had their own families and homes. They were proud of their work, especially when it was for the king or the gods. Traders were also important. Egypt had many goods that other places wanted, like gold, papyrus, and grain. Traders traveled by boat or camel to sell and buy items. They brought back wood, spices, or rare stones from faraway lands. Markets in towns were full of activity. People came to sell fruits, bread, cloth, or animals. Buyers looked for the best quality and price. Bargaining was common. It was a normal part of shopping. Some people worked in temples. Priests and priestesses performed religious duties. Scribes were also important. They could read and write, which was a rare skill. Scribes worked for the government or temples. They kept records, wrote letters, and managed taxes. To become a scribe, a boy had to study for many years. It was a respected job with a good future. Even though work was hard, Egyptians had free time too. After their jobs, people relaxed with their families or friends. They played games like senet, which was a board game. They also played sports like wrestling, swimming, or boating. Children loved to play outside with toys or pets. Pets were common in homes. People kept cats, dogs, monkeys, or even birds. Music and dance were popular activities. People used instruments like drums, flutes, and harps. Dancers performed at parties or festivals. Storytelling was another fun activity. Families sat together to listen to tales about gods, animals, or past heroes. These stories were not only fun, they also taught lessons and values. Festivals were big events in ancient Egypt. Some lasted for many days. People wore nice clothes, ate special food, and joined parades or ceremonies. Some festivals were for the gods, and others were about the seasons, like harvest time. These events helped people feel happy and united. They were a time to rest, celebrate, and enjoy life. The economy of ancient Egypt was based on trade, farming, and government work. People paid taxes in goods, not money. For example, a farmer might give wheat as tax. The government used these goods to support soldiers, temple workers, and the royal family. Wealth was not equal. Rich families had more land, workers, and beautiful homes. Poor people had simple lives, but they still had time for joy and tradition. In conclusion, life in ancient Egypt was full of work, but also full of culture, rest, and connection. People took pride in their jobs, cared for their families, and celebrated their gods and seasons. Through their hard work and creativity, they built one of the most amazing civilizations in human history. Thank you for learning with us at Stairway to English. We hope you enjoyed discovering the daily life of ancient Egyptians. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more easy English lessons about history, science, and the world around us. See you in the next video.